My name is Nathan. I'm originally from France, now live in the US, and I'm an avid thinker, food enthusiast, and climate optimist. And I also write a weekly newsletter called BRB with Nathan P, kind of all about food and climate. So very excited to be here with Nullker Conversations today. Biomimicry is really looking to nature for inspiration on how we can solve everyday problems. So it's kind of a mindset of, asking ourselves, this problem that I'm working on, has nature found a way to solve this already? So for example, let's say I'm working on a solar panel. There's a lot of plants and leaves that already use the sun. So I could look to a sunflower and see how it's using the sun. And you can see that it's turning kind of all throughout the day so they can keep facing the sun. And we can kind of do the same thing with solar panels, and that's a form of biomimicry. So there's a ton of examples of biomimicry that we use every day. So an example is Velcro, right? So Velcro is inspired from the burdock plant. It's this plant that has these very tiny, kind of very small hooks, so that the seeds and parts of the plants can stick to animals as they pass. And so that enables the plant to kind of reproduce and kind of spread itself. And so we can use that, and we all use Velcro every day. Another one is in Japan, when they're designing these high-speed trains, they had a problem. The trains were not very aerodynamic, and they would make these very, very loud noises when they would come out from under bridges. So they looked at inspiration for this bird called the kingfisher, which makes no splash when it kind of dives into water. And then they shaped the front of that train like the beak of the kingfisher. And now you have a train that goes faster, uses less energy, and makes no sound when exiting tunnels. There's so many more examples. I mean, I could go on about this all day. I'll mention another one, which is, the surface of shark skin. Very, very smooth, if anyone's ever touched a shark. Hopefully not too closely, but yeah, that surface, you'll never see anything sticking to it, algae or other things. It's what we call an anti-fouling surface. And it's so aerodynamic that they started to make swimsuits that has a structure similar to shark skin. And it's so aerodynamic that they banned it at the Olympics. So just another example of biomimicry. I think there's a lot of overlap. I think biomimicry is an approach that can help inspire sustainable design. So, for example, we can look at things like termite mounds. Termites are amazing architects. They build these huge structures both above and underground that are amazing feats of architecture and engineering. And the way they design those termite mounds with the airflows is that it keeps a very constant temperature and a very constant humidity. And we can look to that structure and do the same in our buildings. And now we can have buildings that kind of self-regulate themselves from a temperature perspective and require 90% less air conditioning. There's a great example of this in a mall in Zimbabwe that has done this. So biomimicry is really imitating some of the forms, some of the materials, some of the architectures that we see in the natural world. And then we can use that to make more sustainable design in our products and in our buildings. I mean, is nature better or humans smarter? I think that's a great question. I think we need a little more humility as a society. I think humans are incredibly smart, and we collectively know a lot. And we've produced some amazing feats of science and engineering. But at the same time, we're also currently destroying our only home. And we still have to figure out how to live sustainably on this planet. And nature is incredibly intelligent and complex, I think much more than we give it credit for. I'll give you an example. So, one of the main advances with technology by humankind is kind of computers and computer chips. So if you look at a computer chip, it's made of all these kind of tiny parts called transistors. They're very small ridges of silicon that allow you to transmit electricity and information. Basically, how small that ridge is dictates how powerful your microchip is. So today, most ridges are around 10 to 20 nanometers in thickness. And it's taken us decades to get there. And to go from 20 to 10 nanometers in thickness takes about $10 billion of R&D and of capital expenditures. And maybe today the best computers in the world might be between 5 and 10 nanometers. Now, if we look to the oceans, we have these floating things. They're phytoplankton, and there's one type of them called diatoms. And if you look at diatoms, their structure is also made of silicon. And if you look at the ridges of that silicon, they are 5 nanometers. So basically as good or better than the best microchips in the world. And these diatoms have been floating in the oceans for 3 billion years. Nature has figured this out way before we have. And they don't need, $10 billion of research or big facilities to make this. They just need water. They just need sunlight and seawater. So I think we have a lot to learn from nature still. I mean, nature is 3.8 billion years of R&D, and everything that we see around us, is designed a very certain way for a reason. And so I think we need some humility and kind of look to nature on, what solutions, what materials, what systems could we learn from to create a more sustainable living on Earth. I love this question. I think, we definitely need to bring together ecology and economy. I think, we're living in an economy which is very fast paced. There's a lot of linear production, and we're seeing, the consequences of our kind of intensive economy, with growth at all costs, really having an impact on the planet. And we know we can't keep going this way. So I think there's still a lot that we can learn from nature to kind of develop things in cycles as opposed to linearly. And so one thing that I'm very excited about is, in biomimicry, you can look to a single organism and you can learn, how it does things, what's materials, what forms does it use. But you can also imitate entire ecosystems, right? And if we look to nature, there is no such thing as waste, because everything that's produced is going to be wanted by someone else. And I think that's a practice that we need to, take more into account in kind of the economies and the systems that we create. And there's this principle that was developed by this Belgian entrepreneur, Gunther Pauli, and it's called the blue economy. And it's doing precisely just that. Like, how do we create not only, products, but entire systems that are designed like nature is? And so, right now we have a chemical pollution crisis, we have a plastic crisis, we have an air pollution crisis. We see, rising temperatures above the oceans, in 2023 being much higher than they've been in kind of recorded history. And so I think this is really a turning point to kind of look at our systems and say, this is not working. We need better solutions. And I think, biomimicry is a way that can get us there. Thank you for having me on Nullker Conversations. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you next week on BRB with Nathan P.